I think that excellence in work can be this kind of where everything meets. This is where we transcend ourselves in service to others. But it's something very concrete. It's something very positive and specific. So our adrenaline helps us to do our best in actually attaining that excellence. So everything comes together and the focus is like that. In a way, that's really the left brain and the right brain working perfectly together.
Hey, this is Sharif here with another episode of The Golden Hour, joined by Dr. Kevin Majors. Kevin, good to be back here with you.
Hey, Sharif. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, I thought we could do this episode on challenge. And to introduce it, I have an interesting question from one of our most frequent Optimal Work users.
Ooh, right.
Okay, let me go ahead and read it. Today, I showed up for work pretty eager to complete my tasks. I think this means yesterday, because I think they're talking at the end of the day. I worked through them methodically and more or less completed everything I wanted to. I pride myself on producing high-quality work, but sometimes finishing everything quickly is not my strong suit. But predicting work deadlines is pretty tough anyway. I was happy with my day and then enjoyed the evening with friends. Am I correctly interpreting optimal work as saying that this day was not good, since I never really challenged myself explicitly?
Oh, that's a great question. So what this person is asking about is, to what extent do you need to, I think, painfully challenge yourself in order to grow from it? Because chances are this person was actually had objectives and had quality standards. So the sense of quality that the person referred to as that they were aiming for in their work, that actually is the challenge. So the challenge is the image of the beautiful that you're trying to now make concrete. So there was this concretizing the person was doing, but could they have grown more on the day in question? So I'd also say then, what if the person was a perfectionist or had a taskmaster that turned this person into a workaholic? I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but what if this day represented a victory because they kept the work in bounds, so they had time for friends. So it could be that there are maybe challenge doesn't all feel the same. So and maybe what this person thinks of as challenge is only a small part of what real challenge is.
Yeah, because sometimes we talk about challenges, especially in the context of anxiety. So if you really don't like public speaking, and then you want to embrace the challenge of, speaking in front of a large audience, being enthusiastic, kind of getting outside of yourself and just giving a great talk, that sort of thing. And that's very daunting for people. And that's a big challenge, which is like you facing your fears. So when we talk about challenge and challenging yourself according to your highest ideals and engaging challenge throughout the day, do we mean having that type of daunting challenge 24/7 or all your waking hours?
Yeah. So what's interesting about anxiety is that it is the most common reason that people fail to get traction. They get distracted by their own anxiety. So if the person giving the public speech, what's the challenge there? Well, it's either the speech or it's how they're feeling while giving it. And if they turn the challenge into how they're feeling while giving it, they will not have a way of actually giving their best in that speech. So adrenaline helps us to rise to a challenge and get traction in it, but that can't work if your attention is focused on the adrenaline itself. So in a way, what the person has to do is let go of the taking care of adrenaline and instead have a goal of excellence in the task, like in this case, like in a performance, a kind of excellent performance. And if they aim for that excellence, everything kicks in the background, and the adrenaline now can lift them. Instead of being challenging, it's what actually lets them get traction in the challenge. So only when you've internalized the challenge, now there's some excellence in the performance you're aiming for, then everything in the background can work. And I think people have to kind of trust that that happens. So yeah, like I don't think you could do that kind of challenge easily every single day. Now, politicians do it on the campaign trail. So they're, where they're always having these public performances. But I just went on Sunday, friend was playing in the Sanders Theater at Harvard, and it was the Verdi Requiem. And that was 10 times better than any performance I've ever seen in my life. It was so incredible. But there is no way they could do it every single day, or that they could keep repeating it. So I think that there is such a thing as real depletion, and so I don't think, it's just like if you're lifting weights, you probably wouldn't want to do it every single day, right? So maybe
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you need
you
rest.
need rest. So maybe the better concept here is understanding hormesis. And I love the concept of hormesis is one of these grand unifying theories across all of biology, and medicine. Because hormesis is what it's the benefit essentially, or it's study, like you could say, it's the process by which an organism will adapt to challenge by growing stronger in the face of it. And it's thought of best as a dose response curve, where a little bit of something in a moderate, regular, rational way actually then gives you a kind of preconditioning that while the bigger dose would kill you. And examples of hormesis would be things like ice baths. Obviously, like too much time spent in ice would kill you, but the right amount of time, a moderate, reasonable amount, in fact, is profoundly healthy for the body. And saunas are also like that. There are all these health benefits. So for, one of the probably biggest things a person could do to extend their life is do a sauna 4 times a week. So for 20 minutes, something above 170 degrees Fahrenheit. But there are all of these pathways by which the heat, which would kill you if you stayed there too long, in these regular, reasonable doses, gives you an adaptive response. So all exercises like that, almost everything that we study and every drug we give is like that. In a small amount, it has these benefits that you get, especially if it triggers an adaptive response. But then at too much, it would kill you. So that's why maybe when you think about challenge, I think there's a sweet spot. And you have to know, like you wouldn't want to do certain types of challenges, like probably even high intensity interval training. You may not want to do that every single day, right? The body does need time of rest. High intensity resistance training, you wouldn't want to do that regularly.
Yeah, Kevin, I really like the idea of hormesis, and that came up as we were re-recording the masterclass. We actually have in the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing new videos in the masterclass, new videos for topics 1 to start and subsequent topics after that. But getting into hormesis, so it seems like there's a direct application there in these kind of physical things of medicine and toxins and stuff in the body, but then so it also seems to have this application of challenging yourself intellectually. Is that right? So it's physical and intellectual.
Yeah. So that in fact, they found that people who regularly challenge themselves intellectually end up having more resilient memories down the line. They have like a lower incidence of Alzheimer's. So one of the best things people can do to prevent dementia is to stay very mentally active. There may even be some indications that the training of the memory, which does involve some kind of pain, the best way of learning anything new is painful, effortful recall. So that in the famous book, Make It Stick, where it talks about this, all the science behind this, that when you have to work hard to remember something and it kind of hurts, and then you remember it, or if you don't, you restudy it, And then you try to make sure you keep quizzing yourself. So you use note cards to quiz yourself regularly. And these spaced intervals that increasingly get longer. Well, that's also hormetic. That there is something there that was painful and effortful, and then your body responds by making an enduring memory. But writ large, people who do that actually just have better chance of not ever having dementia. So these regular ways of stressing yourself, the body adapts in a way that makes you stronger in a disproportionate way. I mean, when this was first studied, it was, in the late 70s with E. coli, and they would give this substance that would cause mutations in the E. coli. And they found that if they gave a small amount of the mutating substance that, and then later would do trials by giving more and more and more of this mutating substance, that the pre-treated ones were 6,000 times less likely to have mutations than the unpretreated ones. So, so it's and this is the thing about hormesis is it can, because the benefits keep accruing over time, a little bit can go a long way.
It seems like part of the treatment of hormesis that there's this introduction of stress, but then I think they use the term biphasic, or that there's a kind of withdrawal of the stress, so that part of the growth happens during a kind of break period. So it's not just constant stress, but that there's a stress and then rest. So is that important? Is that central to the concept of hormesis, that there's, and similarly to the way we talk about challenging yourself in work, that you work intensely for an hour and then you take a break? So is that part of what's going on here?
Yeah. One of the most simple models, in fact, like glutamate in the brain is hormetic. So a little dose will cause it's essentially the excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain. It's responsible for something like 70% of all brain transmission. But at too high a dose, you would die. It would be completely toxic to the cells. And so you have these occasional bursts of glutamate, and then afterwards there's a period of it not firing. If it fired constantly again and again and again, that could actually harm neurons. So I think it is built into the idea of hormesis that there's an interval, that there's some kind of, there's a stressor, and then you let go. And there can be another stressor, and then you let go. So like with the sauna, you just do it for 20 minutes. You don't do it all day long, like that. So it would be, all of these things can be, if you do them too much or too long, so it ends up damaging the organism. It's learning what's the right amount of time, what's the right amount of intensity, and then you can get these unexpected longevity benefits.
So now in thinking of applying this to the question of challenge throughout the day and challenge with anxiety, how do you ensure that people are challenging themselves enough? I mean, how do you help people to be sincere? Because I could see someone facing a big challenge and they say, well, this is just too much. This is like, hormesis is supposed to be moderate challenge, and this is just extreme challenge. So I'm not doing it. How do you help people to still have the sense of embracing challenge and engaging challenge in that kind of sincere way?
I believe that the main obstacle to getting traction, embracing challenges, is anxiety, or the phobia of anxiety that many people have. That it's anxiety that leads people to subtly sabotage their progress in different ways. They're afraid of what life will be like at this new higher level. They can be afraid of their own success. They can be afraid of trying in something important and failing. But the benefits of challenging yourself are so clear once you get into a habit of doing it in different ways, but in regular ways, that I think it's anxiety that is the thing that keeps people away from it. And it's hard for people to be sincere about what makes them anxious. So I think that many times that would show a remarkable degree of openness and vulnerability for someone to actually tell you what their main fear is. Or it's just, anxiety is a very private, personal thing for so many of us. And so we have to learn to like admit to ourselves when we have anxiety that is holding us back. Because that is the main distraction from challenge. So that you lose traction in the challenge because you get too focused on how it's making you feel, or you're not wanting to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. So if we earlier discussed the example of public speaking, if you have a fear of public speaking and now someone, I don't know, asks you to give a speech to the whole company on your some project that you were working on, and this scares you a lot, and to speak to a big audience, maybe the executive team is there too. So is that ever too much of a challenge? I mean, would you ever say, oh, okay, we need to moderate that challenge? Maybe like, would you ever advise someone to try to back out of it in some way? Or would you always say, oh, engage that challenge, that you have to engage that?
Well, it'd be hard for me to say that there is that you always have to accept a given challenge. Because when you work with a lot of people, you'll see sometimes they do run away, and that's just deferred growth. And then it's important to stick with people and to help them to get ready for the next one and to be able to maybe work their way up to it. So sometimes you can take one step backward and then two steps forward. But I think that the best thing is that we have a sense that the challenges in our life are really more about the duties that we have in life, so that we don't really choose the challenges kind of willy-nilly. It's like, oh yeah, this idea just came to me and now I have to challenge myself that way. Typically, challenges, or the things that would be challenging, show up as some kind of duty. And when there's a duty, the duties come from bonds. And so it's the bonds that we have, the bonds of loyalty to our family, to our company, to whatever the kind of community might be. If it's really in the best interest of the community in some way, whatever that means, then there can be a kind of natural duty to do it, even if you feel uncomfortable doing it. Or sometimes you have to make this job work, otherwise your family will suffer. So it's like there's a sense of duty there. So I think with duties, it's good to see that many of the things in our life are duties that come from the bonds that we have. You don't want to just see the duty. I think that can actually then, if people are too duty bound, they're duty conscious, sometimes that makes them a little mechanical or just feel like they have to get it done. It's better to see the bonds underneath it and say, okay, do I really care about these people here that I'll be speaking to? Is there some good that I can do the company, or I can do this audience, that this is a real opportunity for me to rise up to? So hopefully there would be a sense of then people learning how to transcend themselves. And I don't see how you can transcend yourself without challenge.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question was going to get into this because I think it's very interesting. With challenge, sometimes, especially thinking about it in terms of your own growth, it can almost have a self-centered view where it's like, I'm charting my own course of self-improvement, and so I'm selecting this challenge and I'm going to do this. But a lot of times challenges come from the outside in some way, and they're really about the needs of other people and how we're serving other people. So it seems like from that perspective, it's better to focus on the challenge like externally and how it's a service to other people and how it will help other people and how it's a really good thing to do this. At the same time, one thing we talk about a lot is the need to internalize the challenge and not have challenges feel like they're coming from outside of you. So how do you balance those two perspectives?
Well, if you're wanting to do an excellent job on something, like say this presentation, then you would want to see, okay, what would be the ultimate reason why for that? Okay, is it to really help the people that you're with? So one of the things then that we always need when, looking at these challenges is sincerity with ourselves. What am I really seeking here? Am I seeking something selfish? Am I seeking some kind of relief? or am I actually seeking to do the best for who and the work that we have to do, all professional work and work in the home is service. So wanting to do it really well, is actually providing an even better service. So it seems that the more we are focused on this kind of excellence in our work that we're aiming for, that's what allows us to, one, internalize the challenge, because now you have something that you're positively aiming for that adrenaline will help you attain. But then it's also going to help you because you're actually doing a better service for others. So I think that excellence in work can be this kind of where everything meets. This is where we transcend ourselves in service to others. But it's something very concrete. It's something very positive and specific. So our adrenaline helps us to do our best in actually attaining that excellence. So everything comes together and the focus is like that. In a way, that's really the left brain and the right brain working perfectly together. So the left brain looks at the technical aspects of that excellence and how to make sure we do it really well and what's the right strategy. And then the right brain keeps the motive in mind. So that by doing this thing excellently, it's really for this other bigger purpose.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, one thing that seems to be the case is that the more you're focused on your bonds with other people, the more somehow, I don't know, the universe just sends you new types of challenges to engage in order to deepen those bonds and serve those people. And then those challenges are like hormesis, or evoke a hormetic response, I guess you would say, in you. So then you're growing. So there's a nice that we're really social beings, that when we're focused on other people, we're growing more and getting more challenges. And it reminds me of we did an episode on Maslow a long time ago, I think, where he equates self-actualization with self-transcendence. There's kind of, that's the same idea, it seems to me, right?
Yeah, that all the highest kind of functioning that we're capable of is only capable to the extent that we are embracing a challenge actively and positively. So you don't just happen to have your best performance on something. But that best performance, that I think is possible in the smallest actions through the entire day. That there are ways that you can do them more mindfully than you've done before. You can do them savoring the good in them more. You can do them more intentionally for others. So there are ways where you can bring these big ideals of magnanimity and surpassing yourself and really sincerely seeking the good of the others and being generous with others. But then that can be concretized by embracing the smallest challenges. So that whatever you're doing, you can find a way to do it with a little more finesse. And I think that, like going to the initial question that was asked, I think that it can happen that we don't have these daunting challenges every day that are big, but it could be that you end up with a greater mass of small little challenges that were cheerfully welcomed all through the day, little things of trying to do something well that you just continually do, as the day goes on, that ends up producing, in fact, like a deeper kind of growth than perhaps the big performances would produce.
Right. Awesome. Well, Kevin, I think that's a fantastic note for us to end on here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sharif. Yeah. It reminds us all to be seeing, like, even today, what are the little challenges immediately in front of us now? And what would it be like to do them just 10% better?
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful, Kevin. Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. We'll be back next week.